I do admit I have misspoken by saying all African Americans deserve reparation payments. What I meant to say was that all African Americans that can prove their descendancy by showing legitimate evidence deserve reparation payments. They can do this by researching past family wills and past censuses. My opponent's second argument is his questioning of where the money would come from and that an increase in spending is not feasible due to the recent economic turnaround. My answer is that the money should come from the outrageous $682 billion that the US currently spends on its military. A mere 5% cut on military spending would be enough to give African Americans the money they deserve. The money will be put to much better use as it could be used to pay for a family's rent, to live another month instead of more weapons to harm people with. In addition, if the money would come from military spending, there would be no increase in overall spending and the economy wouldn't have to deal with an increase in debt. My opponent's third argument is that because African Americans use food stamps the most, they don't deserve any additional government help. My contention is that African Americans don't use food stamps because they want to, it's because they have to. This just shows that African Americans need an injection of money to merely survive. It's similar to giving a cancer patient one round of chemotherapy and stopping because he already received enough. My opponent's last argument is that reparations would simply continue the cycle of racism and the dependency of African Americans to the government. Reparation payments wouldn't continue the cycle of racism, but in fact it would end it. Currently, there is a clear economic and educational gap between African Americans and other races, so giving African Americans some extra spending money would actually help close the gap and in the long run would actually decrease African American dependency. My opponent says giving African Americans money wouldn't solve anything because they aren't educated enough to properly spend the money, but a struggling African American family that can barely pay rent or feed themselves don't need an education to know how to spend their money.